The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast, a hall of shining crystal and floating lights, where leaders of 100 alien races gathered to speak of peace and order. But on this night, peace was only a mask, and behind it, a darker plan was hidden, at the far end of the chamber. The Council's High Speaker raised his long silver hands, his voice echoing with cold authority. He spoke of balance, of security, of threats that must be removed before they grow too powerful. And though no names were spoken aloud, everyone in the hall knew the target. It was Earth. Admiral Hayes stood quietly among the shadows, the lone human envoy allowed into the Council's halls, his uniform neat, his eyes sharp. He had believed for years that humanity was close to joining the Council as equals. He had believed their words of unity, their promises of alliance. But what he heard now broke that belief into shards. The humans rise too fast, the High Speaker declared, his many eyes sweeping across the hall. Their ships multiply, their science advances, they spread to stars that should not be theirs. If they continue, they will upset the balance of the galaxy, and so we must act swiftly and without hesitation. Wave of whispers filled the chamber, claws and tendrils tapping against desks. Many voices agreed, some with fear, some with eagerness. A few tried to raise protests, saying humanity had shown no aggression, that Earth had offered trade and peace. But those voices were silenced by the weight of the Council's power. Admiral Hayes clenched his jaw, his heart beating faster. He had suspected distrust, but not betrayal. He moved quietly toward the wall, his wrist console recording every word. He knew this proof was dangerous, but he also knew Earth must be warned. Then a message flickered across his console, not from his allies, but from the Council's network itself. A secret note, a hidden command, it read. Strike Earth at dawn cycle, total purge, no survivors. The words burned into his mind. Hayes drew in a sharp breath, his eyes flicking around the chamber. Did anyone notice? Had anyone seen the light on his wrist? He saw the gaze of a Zenari guard, tall and insect-like, watching him with narrow eyes. The Council continued their vote. One by one, the members raised hands, claws, or tendrils, and the result was clear. Nearly unanimous, humanity would be destroyed. The High Speaker gave a slow nod. Then it is decided, the Terran world will burn. Hayes felt his stomach twist. But he kept his face calm. He had been in battles before, he had seen death, but this was something greater. This was the cold hand of extinction closing around his people. He turned, slowly, carefully, and began to walk toward the exit. The chamber doors were tall and curved, guarded by 2 alien soldiers in dark armor. As Hayes approached, one shifted slightly, their hand brushing the grip of a weapon. Hayes forced a polite smile, gave a small bow, and passed through outside. The corridors of the Council station stretched in silver and blue, filled with the hum of alien voices. Hayes moved quickly, his boots echoing against the smooth floor. He tapped his console, sending a coded message back to Earth. Fragments of what he had recorded, encrypted so only Terran command could break it. But even as he sent it, alarms whispered to life, the walls glowing red with warning symbols. He cursed under his breath. The Council had detected his signal. A voice boomed through the station, cold and metallic. Human envoy, halt. You are under arrest by order of the Council. Hayes did not halt. He broke into a run, weaving through the crowd of alien diplomats who shrank back in confusion and fear. The insect-like Zenari guards were close, their legs clattering against the floor as they pursued, energy weapons charged with a rising whine. Hayes dashed into a narrow passage, his breath heavy, his console still flashing with the last line of his message. Earth is in danger. Trust no one. He turned a corner and nearly collided with a group of Sharon merchants. Tall, scaled creatures who hissed in alarm. Hayes pushed past, muttering apologies behind him. Energy bolts struck the walls, throwing sparks into the air. His mind raced. He had to reach the shuttle bay. His small diplomatic vessel was waiting. Hidden among the hundreds of ships docked in orbit, If he could escape, if he could carry the full recording himself, then Earth might have enough warning to prepare. He leapt down a set of stairs 2 at a time. Boots slamming hard, pain shooting through his knees. But he kept running. He had no choice. His people's survival depended on him. Ahead, 2 guards blocked the passage, their armor gleaming black, weapons raised. Hayes skidded to a halt, his hand dropping to the small pistol at his belt, a weapon he was technically forbidden to carry inside the council station. But tonight, rules no longer mattered. The first guard fired. A crackling bolt of energy slicing through the air. Hayes rolled to the side, drawing his pistol. He fired back. The shot hitting the guard square in the chest. Sparks exploded. The alien stumbled and fell. The second guard snarled and charged. Hayes fired again, the bolt striking the wall as the alien swung a heavy arm. Hayes ducked, felt the strike pass over his head, and fired at close range. The guard dropped with a hiss of pain. Breathing hard, Hayes pushed on. He could hear more footsteps, more shouts. The council would not let him leave alive. He was carrying their darkest secret now. Finally, he reached the outer bay. Wide windows showing the black sea of stars. His shuttle waiting, small and fragile among the towering ships of alien empires. He sprinted toward it, slamming his hand against the access pad. The door sliding open with a hiss. Behind him, voices shouted, weapons charged. But Hayes threw himself inside, the door closing just as bolts of energy struck against it. He scrambled into the pilot's seat, hands flying across the controls. Engines roared to life. The shuttle lifted, trembling, alarms still flashing red. Hayes pushed the throttle, and the small vessel shot out into the void. As the stars stretched into lines and the ship leapt to faster-than-light speed, Hayes sat back, sweat dripping down his face, his eyes fixed on the console where the recording still glowed. Proof of betrayal, proof of the council's plan. He whispered into the silence, "Hold on, Earth, the storm is coming." And his ship vanished into the dark, carrying with it the seed of both hope and war. Asterisk, the council's words still burned in Admiral Hayes's mind as his small shuttle cut through the endless dark of space. Behind him, the council station was shrinking into a glittering speck, but ahead stretched the long and dangerous path toward Earth. The recording glowed in his console, damning proof of betrayal. Yet Hayes knew a warning was useless if no one believed him. When his message finally reached Earth, it was met not with unity, but with doubt. The leaders of the United Terran Command gathered in their fortified chambers under the mountains of Luna. Screens filled with tired faces, voices layered with suspicion. The council claims humanity is preparing for war. One general said, his eyes narrow, "They warn us not to trust our own envoy. They say Hayes has turned rogue." The council had acted quickly, spreading lies across the galaxy, their diplomats flooding the channels with accusations. Earth was painted as the aggressor, the restless child of the stars, too dangerous, too ambitious. The galaxy must be protected from humanity before humanity struck first. Hayes listened as the leaders debated, some calling for immediate preparation, others fearing open defiance. "If we arm ourselves now," one minister whispered, "the council will see it as proof of guilt. They will descend on us with all their fleets, and we will be crushed." But Hayes's voice cut through the argument, steady and low. "If we do nothing, they will come anyway. I was there. I heard the vote. They have already chosen our fate." His eyes were hard, his jaw set. He had seen death before, but never had he felt this kind of despair. Yet even as Hayes spoke, his warning fell into the cracks of fear and politics. Earth's leaders hesitated. They stalled, they argued, and the council's shadow grew ever closer, in orbit. Earth's defense fleet floated silently above the blue curve of the planet. Proud ships, but too few. Too scattered, too outdated. The admiral spoke of upgrading weapons, of rallying colonies to the cause. But time was a luxury they did not have. Whispers spread across the colonies, whispers of the council's propaganda. Humans were told they could be spared if they surrendered. If they bent the knee, some voices among the outer worlds even began to doubt Earth itself, to wonder if resistance was madness. Hayes walked among the crews of the defense fleet. He saw the doubt in their eyes, young men and women who had signed up for honor, for the stars, now caught in a war they had no chance to win. "Sir," one pilot asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "do we really have hope, or are we already dead?" Hayes had no answer, and his silence was heavier than any words. Then came the first shadow of the storm. Reports from the Kuiper frontier spoke of strange movements, fleets vanishing, outposts cut off, trade routes burning in sudden attacks. Hayes read the transmissions late into the night, each one a dagger. He knew the Council's fleets were advancing. He knew the trap was already closing. Earth sent envoys to plead with all eyes, to beg for aid. But doors closed in their faces, old partners withdrew, trade convoys stopped arriving. Even the colonies that had once depended on Terran protection now whispered of cutting ties. None wished to stand against the Council, none dared. Hayes returned to his quarters and stared at the stars through the glass, each one a point of light. Each one a reminder of the vastness against which humanity now stood alone. His hands trembled as he poured himself a drink, the burn of the liquid grounding him in the moment. He thought of his home, of the crowded streets of New London, of children running through the rain. He thought of what would be lost when the Council's fleets arrived, and still, Earth's leaders hesitated. Still they argued in chambers, still they asked for more time. Hayes slammed his fist against the table during one meeting. "Time is the one thing we no longer have." His voice thundered across the chamber. "They are already moving, already burning our colonies, and we sit here like lambs waiting for the knife." But the Council's web of lies was too well spun, too thick, and fear was stronger than reason. For every leader who called for resistance, two more argued for caution, for compromise, for surrender. Then, at last came the moment no one could deny. The sky itself lit with fire, Earth's outposts. At Neptune's orbit reported massive warp signatures. Alien dreadnoughts sliding into the system like wolves into a fold. Their weapons hot, their shields gleaming. The first strike had begun. The warning klaxons rang across Earth's cities. Sirens wailed through streets. Civilians rushed into shelters. Mothers clutched children as the sky above them shimmered with the light of approaching war. The defense fleet scrambled, engines roaring, pilots racing to their ships. But Hayes knew it was too late. As Earth's leaders watched the enemy ships, on their screens their faces went pale. The Council's betrayal was no longer rumor, no longer a warning ignored. It was fire in the sky. It was death arriving in orbit. Hayes stood at the heart of command, his fists clenched, his voice hard as steel. "You wanted proof. Here it is. Now we fight or we die." His words left no room for argument, and in that moment, even the most fearful among them understood the truth. The first battle had begun. Humanity stood on the edge of annihilation, but within the heart of every soldier, every pilot, and within the steady gaze of Admiral Hayes, a spark of fury burned, a promise whispered in silence. If Earth must fall, it will fall fighting, and if even one human survives, then vengeance will follow. For betrayal was a wound that could never be forgiven, and humanity's answer was yet to come. The void above Earth was calm for only a moment, a fragile silence before the storm. Then the fabric of space tore open with a violent ripple. Hundreds of alien warships dropped from faster-than-light travel, their hulls black and jagged, bristling with weapons that glowed like the eyes of predators. They came without warning, without hesitation. The first strike had begun. Civilians looked up from city streets and saw the sky burn. Glowing trails of fire streaked across the heavens as orbital defenses tried to respond. Alarms blared in every settlement. Sirens howled through the night. Families rushed into bunkers. Children cried as shadows of colossal dreadnoughts darkened the horizon. In orbit, Earth's defense fleet scrambled, small cruisers and frigates turning to face the tide. their engines flaring bright, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Admiral Hayes stood on the command deck of the Vigilant, Earth's flagship, his eyes fixed on the tactical display as red enemy markers spread across the system like a disease. Enemy ships detected at Neptune's orbit, more at Saturn. Additional fleets inbound through Jupiter's shadow, the officer reported, her voice shaking. Hayes gave a sharp nod. All units, form phalanx formation, protect Earth at all cost. We hold them until we can't. His words were steady, but inside he knew the truth. This was not a battle they could win. It was a slaughter dressed as defense. The first dreadnought opened fire. A beam of green energy lanced across space, striking a Terran destroyer. The ship shuddered, then erupted into a ball of light, fragments scattering like sparks. Cries echoed across comms, but more beams followed, more ships fell, one after another, on Earth. People huddled in shelters could feel the rumble as pieces of burning ships rained through the atmosphere, fiery streaks falling like meteors, every impact a reminder of the battle overhead. The Vigilant shuddered as a barrage struck its shields. Sparks flew across the command deck. The crew held their stations. Hayes gripped the rail and barked, "Return fire, target their lead dreadnought, give them something to remember." The ship's massive rail cannons roared, firing slugs at near-light speed. They slammed into the enemy's armor, tearing great wounds. For a heartbeat, hope flickered. But the enemy ships advanced without pause, their numbers endless like a tide that swallowed stars. Human ships fought with courage. But courage was not enough against overwhelming firepower. One by one, Earth's orbital stations fell silent. Great habitats that had floated for decades were torn apart, their pieces drifting lifeless through the void. Hayes watched the casualty reports scroll across his screen, names and ships, friends and allies. Blinking out into silence, his jaw tightened, his chest heavy. "Admiral," a young officer said, her face pale. "We can't hold them, there are too many." Hayes looked at her, his voice steady despite the storm. "Then we make them bleed for every inch. We make them remember that humanity does not bow." The fleet fought desperately, frigates darting between alien cruisers, launching torpedoes that shattered hulls. Small victories that bought only seconds. Fighters streaked through the chaos, brave pilots diving into impossible odds. Some ran their ships into enemy vessels when their weapons failed, turning themselves into fireballs of resistance. On the ground, Earth's defenses joined the fight. Massive railguns hidden in mountains fired into the sky, striking enemy ships in low orbit. Missile silos unleashed storms of fire, but for every alien ship that fell, 10 more pressed forward. Then came the bombardment. The enemy dreadnoughts tilted their massive cannons downward. Energy beams lanced into Earth's surface. Cities erupted in firestorms. Towers crumbled. Oceans boiled. Where strikes landed, millions died in moments. Screens filled comms until the channels went dark. In New London, the night sky became a sheet of flame. The ground shook as the first beam cut through the city center. Hayes's mind flashed with memory, children laughing in the rain, the sound of home, all of it erased in a single breath of fire. The Vigilant staggered as another barrage tore through its flank. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the deck. Hayes barked orders. "Seal the breach. Reroute power. Keep firing." His crew obeyed, bloodied but unbroken. On the outer rim of the battle, a battered Terran cruiser broadcast a desperate signal, a voice strained with static and fear. "This is the Aurora. Shields gone, engines failing. To any ship still fighting, don't give up. Don't let them take everything." Moments later, the signal cut off in an explosion of light. Hayes stood silent, watching his fleet crumble, his people burning. He felt fury claw at his chest, not fear, not despair, but fury. He remembered the council chamber, the cold voices that had voted for annihilation, and his heart swore a promise. Even if Earth fell, humanity would rise again. "Admiral," another officer said, tears in her eyes, "we can't hold. Should we order retreat?" Hayes looked at her, Then at the dying planet below, his voice was heavy as iron. No retreat. We hold until the last. The world must see we fought, that we did not surrender, ever. The crew straightened at his words, their eyes blazing. Through smoke and fear, the Vigilant turned its guns once more, tearing into the enemy, a lion wounded but still roaring. Hours passed like minutes. The fleet was reduced to wreckage. Burning husks drifting in silence, the Vigilant stood alone, shields shattered. Hull cracked, but still firing. Hayes refused to fall silent, his hands steady on the controls. At last, the Council's fleet pulled back, their purpose fulfilled. Earth lay broken, its cities burning, its defenses crushed, billions lost. Yet from the fire and ash, a message had already been sent. A transmission Hayes had prepared, sent before the final strike. Across the colonies, in hidden outposts, the words echoed, simple and fierce, "We will not kneel, we will return." And so the first strike ended, Earth in ruins, its fleet shattered, but its spirit unbroken among the wreckage and the flames. A seed of vengeance had been planted, a promise that would grow in the shadows of the galaxy, waiting for the day humanity's fleet returned, with fire enough to shake the stars. The flames of Earth still burned in the skies when the last Terran. Signals flickered across the void, broken voices crackled through static. Desperate calls from cities already ash, ships already falling. Yet from within the chaos, one clear message was sent. A single line carved into the darkness. "We will not kneel, we will return." Admiral Hayes had prepared it before the Vigilant was torn apart. His last command sent through hidden relays, bouncing between satellites and covert beacons, spreading across colonies, deep space outposts, and even smuggler channels. The Council thought Earth had been silenced. But Earth's final words were louder than fire. In the refugee corridors of Mars, survivors huddled in shelters, their eyes fixed on old screens that suddenly lit with the broadcast. "We will not kneel, we will return," whispers rose in the darkness. Mothers clutching children repeated it like a prayer. Worn soldiers straightened, their fists tightening, tears in their eyes, on Titan's frozen plains. Miners who had once cursed Earth for neglect, now raised their heads. The words lit their hearts like sparks in ice. "We will return." Even if Earth was gone, humanity was not finished. But the Council had its own message. Sleek diplomats filled the channels with lies, their voices smooth, dripping with false reason. Humanity was destroyed because it was dangerous, because it threatened peace, they said. Those who surrender will be spared. Those who resist will share Earth's fate. Many believed, many bent the knee. Colonies too small to defend themselves declared loyalty to the Council, raising alien banners above their cities. But in hidden corners of space, others resisted. Small groups of Terran soldiers and civilians swore to carry on the fight, whispering the Admiral's last words like fire in their veins. Refugee ships drifted between the stars, carrying the broken pieces of a people. Whole families packed into rusting freighters, wounded soldiers lying in narrow bunks, engineers clutching the last fragments of data from destroyed labs. They moved in silence, hunted, unwanted, but not defeated. One such vessel, the Solace, carried thousands. Its captain, Marave, once a merchant, now a protector of the exiled, stood at the viewport as the stars slid past, her eyes hard, her voice quiet. "They think Earth is gone, that we will vanish like dust. But we are not dust, we are fire, waiting to breathe again." The crew listened, nodding. The words were small, but they lit courage in weary hearts. On distant colonies, secret meetings began. Terran officers who had survived the slaughter gathered in abandoned hangars and dark tunnels. They laid out maps of hidden shipyards, caches of weapons buried in forgotten moons. Hushed voices spoke of a dream. "We will build again, in silence. In shadows we will forge a fleet not for defense, but for vengeance." Yet not all were loyal. Whispers of betrayal spread. Some refugees sold coordinates of human hideouts to Council patrols in exchange for survival. Raids fell upon outposts. Whole groups of survivors captured, enslaved, or slaughtered. Suspicion grew like a poison. Every settlement asked the same question: who among us is still Terran? And who has already bowed? Admiral Hayes had not been seen since the fall. Many believed him dead, consumed by fire in the wreck of the Vigilant. Yet his voice lived in the transmission, his words kept alive by those who refused surrender. And in hidden channels, rumors spread, whispers that Hayes had survived, scarred, but alive, somewhere beyond the Council's reach. Waiting, planning. Meanwhile, the Council celebrated. Their fleets paraded above conquered worlds. Their leaders spoke of balance restored, of peace ensured. Yet in the shadows of their victory halls, unease stirred, for though Earth was burning, Terran survivors still fought, still resisted, and the Council had planted a seed of hatred deeper than they understood. On a barren asteroid far beyond the rim, a group of young Terran engineers worked in silence, welding plates to the hull of a stolen frigate, their hands blistered, their faces streaked with grease. One of them, barely 20, whispered as sparks flew, "This is for New London, for my family." Each bolt of steel was more than metal, it was vengeance given form. In deep space, a convoy of refugee ships drifted through a nebula. Chased by a Council patrol, their engines failing, their shields cracked. But instead of fleeing further, one freighter turned, its pilot a wounded soldier, his voice steady as he broadcast, "Run, save the children, I'll hold them off." He rammed his ship into the enemy cruiser, an explosion so bright it lit the nebula like a sunrise. The refugees escaped, carrying his sacrifice into legend. Stories like these spread among the survivors, stories of courage, of defiance, of humanities. While refusing to break, they became more than tailies. They became fuel, a silent promise shared between scattered stars. But still, the shadow of doubt lingered. Earth was ashes, the fleet destroyed, the Council strong. Could humanity ever rise again? Could the words "we will return" be more than a dream? On the edge of known space, in a hidden chamber carved into a dead moon, leaders of the resistance gathered, soldiers, smugglers, engineers, all faces worn with loss. They sat around a steel table, and one of them spoke, her voice harsh but full of fire. "We are scattered, hunted, betrayed, but we are not finished. We will not fade into history. We will not kneel, we will return." The others echoed it, fists slamming against the table, a vow that would bind them. The galaxy believed Earth was gone. The Council believed humanity broken. But in the ruins, in the whispers, in the burning hearts of survivors, a fleet was already being born. Piece by piece, dream by dream. The night of Earth's annihilation had ended, but from the ashes, a new dawn was waiting. A dawn that would one day shake the stars, for humanity had spoken its verdict, and it could not be silenced. "We will not kneel, we will return." Asterisk whispers carried across the galaxy like shadows on the wind. Years had passed since Earth burned, yet the words of its final message, "We will not kneel, we will return," still echoed in secret places. Smugglers heard it in the cantinas of backwater moons. Merchants overheard it in the ports of forgotten colonies. Even Council spies whispered of it in fear. Humanity had vanished from the grand stage, but something was stirring in the dark. At first, it was only rumor, talk of strange ship movements near the edge of the Perseus Arm, whispers of outposts fortified in the black, stories of convoys disappearing, not taken by pirates, but by something else. The survivors who managed to escape spoke of black-hulled warships slipping out of nebulae, silent and deadly, too fast to be caught, too strong to be dismissed. Council officials denied it. They said the humans were finished, broken, scattered. Yet unease gnawed at their words for every destroyed Terran colony. 2 new reports appeared of Terran activity in the shadows. "They are ghosts," one alien admiral muttered in a closed meeting. Ghosts with steel teeth. In truth, the survivors of Earth had not been idle. They had carried the seeds of vengeance with them, and in hidden shipyards carved into asteroid belts and hollow moons, they forged something new, The Terran fleet was being reborn, not as the scattered defenses of old, but as a weapon designed for war. Admiral Hayes lived, though scarred and haunted. The wreck of the Vigilant had not claimed him. He had been pulled from the flames by loyal crew and smuggled into the shadows. For years he had remained hidden, gathering fragments of humanity's strength, welding them together with purpose. His voice no longer pleaded for peace. It commanded preparation for vengeance. On the dead world of Epsilon K9, engineers worked in silence, sparks flying as they welded armor thicker than anything humanity had built before. Rail cannons the length of skyscrapers were mounted to massive frames. Missile pods stacked like towers, and deep within the halls, reactors hummed with new energy. Hayes had ordered them to build ships that could not just fight, but dominate. The designs were different now. Not sleek, not fragile, but brutal. Black steel with jagged lines, ships shaped like predators, their hulls absorbing light, their engines massed to run cold. They carried weapons stolen from alien tech and twisted into Terran form, drones that could blind enemy sensors, cannons that spat tungsten rods at impossible speeds, weapons of terror designed to return terror. The people whispered of one ship in particular, the Erebus, the first of the new dreadnoughts. Her frame so massive she could blot out a station, her cannons able to split moons. She was more fortress than vessel, and when she was tested in the void of a dead system, entire asteroids shattered. With a single barrage, those who saw it swore humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were preparing to wage annihilation. But secrecy was survival. The fleet was built in silence, hidden from the Council's eyes. Convoys of supplies moved through the void, disguised as pirate hauls. Fuel gathered from derelict colonies. Even alien traders who hated the Council sold scraps of tech to Terrans quietly, for profit or revenge. Among the survivors, children grew into warriors. The sons and daughters of the fallen trained in simulators, their minds sharpened with the memory of Earth's fire. Pilots who had been refugees learned to fly the new warships. Engineers who had once fixed farming machines now built weapons that could erase fleets. They were no longer a people of peace. They were a people forged in exile. Rumors spread too fast for the Council to contain. A trade convoy near the Orion Spur vanished. The wrecks later found torn apart, hulls punctured by kinetic slugs no alien ship carried. An entire patrol fleet failed to return from a nebula, their last transmission cut off by static and a voice, cold and human. The fleet remembers. Council propaganda grew desperate, broadcasting assurances that the humans were gone yet. Even their own soldiers muttered in fear, refusing to patrol certain sectors, refusing to chase whispers into the dark. Entire star systems became ghost zones, places where alien fleets entered but never came out, and Hayes waited, watching, gathering, refusing to reveal the full strength of what he had built. He knew one strike too early would doom them, one mistake would give the Council the chance to crush them again, so he bided his time, his gaze cold, his patience iron. Still, there were those who pushed him. Younger commanders burning with rage, demanding action, demanding retribution now. "We cannot keep hiding," one said, slamming his fist against the steel of the table. "Earth burns while we lurk in shadows. We should strike their fleets. We should take their worlds." Hayes's scarred face turned toward him, his voice low, unyielding. "And if we strike before we are ready?" But no matter how fiercely they struck, the humans struck harder. A single Terran cruiser disabled 3 enemy ships with one salvo, its cannons tearing through hulls before the alien captains even realized they were targeted. A squadron of human fighters broke through the enemy lines, weaving through enemy swarms, dropping torpedoes that shredded carriers. Explosions rippled across the battlefield like thunder rolling through clouds. On the bridge of the Erebus, Hayes watched it all. With cold focus, every report of enemy losses was answered with another order. "Target their flagship, break their command." His officers obeyed, their hands steady, their faces hard. These were not soldiers fighting for survival. These were warriors carrying vengeance. The Council's flagship turned its guns, massive. Beams firing at the Erebus, the blasts slammed into her shields. Shaking the dreadnought, sparks flew across the bridge. Alarms screamed, but Hayes stood unmoved. "Return fire," he said, and the Erebus's main cannons roared. The slugs hit like meteors, ripping open the alien flagship, fire bursting from its core. Its commander's final scream lost in static. Panic spread across the enemy ranks. Formations shattered, ships fled, but retreat was no salvation. Terran interceptors hunted them down. Rail slugs punched through their engines. Missiles split their hulls. One by one the fleeing ships became burning wrecks. There was no escape, no mercy. From orbit to orbit, the annihilation spread. Human fleets did not stop at battles. They struck at shipyards, at weapon depots, at supply lines. Every system that had voted for Earth's destruction now burned. Stations shattered, colonies erased, their skies lit with fire. In one sector, the Council's defenders hid behind a moon, hoping to regroup, but the Terrans dropped from hyperspace directly above them. Black shadows blotting out the stars, their weapons unleashed in a single coordinated strike. In less than 10 minutes, the defenders were gone. Their ships reduced to drifting corpses, their moons scarred with impact craters that glowed like wounds. The galaxy watched in horror. Systems that had once laughed at humanity now whispered in fear. Planets that had bowed to the Council began to falter, their people asking, "Will the humans come for us too?" Merchants told stories of Terran fleets appearing like ghosts, striking without warning, leaving only ruin. But to the survivors of Earth, to the scattered colonies still living under the Council's shadow, the stories were hope. They whispered the words again and again. "We will not kneel, we will return." And now those words had become fire made real. The Council tried everything. They sent wave after wave of fleets, but each time the Terrans adapted, learning, striking with greater fury. Council captains reported weapons they had never seen, kinetic strikes that tore apart entire squadrons, swarms of drones that disabled ships before a single shot could be fired. It was as if humanity had turned every lesson of its suffering into a weapon. Admiral Hayes knew it was working, but he did not smile. There was no joy in his face, only resolve. Each battle was another step toward the heart of the enemy. Each victory another piece of vengeance forged. His officers looked to him not as a man, but as a symbol, the scarred admiral who had seen Earth burn and lived to return the fire. The Council's leaders grew desperate, their speeches hollow, their fleets dwindling, their people whispering that perhaps the humans were unstoppable, that perhaps judgment had truly come. Some called them monsters, others called them avengers. But all agreed on one truth: the galaxy would never be the same. By the time the fires dimmed and the wrecks drifted silent, whole sectors had been erased. Fleets that had once ruled the stars were now nothing more than shattered bones. The Terran fleet stood unbroken, their black hulls gleaming with the light of burning worlds, and Hayes gave the order that sealed their fate. His voice carried across the comms to every ship in the fleet. "The Council tried to erase us, they failed. Now we erase them." His words were final. His verdict absolute. The galaxy trembled as the humans advanced toward the Council's capital. The shadow of annihilation marching with them. No longer whispers, no longer rumors, but a storm no one could stop. The Council had betrayed humanity, and humanity had answered. Not with survival, not with peace, but with total annihilation. The Council's capital world glimmered like a jewel in the void, towers of crystal stretching into the sky, oceans sparkling. Beneath a dozen moons, it had been the seat of galactic power for thousands of years, a place where laws were written, treaties signed, and empires humbled. But now, the jewel trembled. For the shadow of Earth had come, the Terran fleet appeared. Without fanfare, black silhouettes tearing free from hyperspace. Hundreds of warships sliding into orbit like blades drawn from a sheath. At their center loomed the Erebus, larger than any alien vessel. her cannons glowing faintly, her engines humming like a predator's growl. Every ship's hull bore the same silent mark, the scars of exile and the promise of vengeance. On the surface below, alarms wailed, civilians rushed through streets of crystal, their eyes wide with terror as the skies filled with shadows. The capital's defense fleet scrambled from its docks, dozens of glittering dreadnoughts rising into the air, their weapons primed, their admirals shouting orders across the coms. Protect the capital at all cost, but even they knew what was coming. In the grand chamber of the council, the high speaker stood surrounded by trembling delegates, his voice hollow as he tried to steady them. They will not dare. They cannot destroy us here. This world is sacred, untouchable. But his words rang false, drowned by the fear in the air. For all could see the black fleet blotting out the stars. On the bridge of the Erebus, Admiral Hayes stood tall, his scarred face lit by the red glow of tactical displays, his eyes cold as steel. Beside him his officers waited, silent, loyal, hardened by years of exile and fire. Hayes spoke at last, his voice steady, low. They thought us weak. They burned our home. Now they will learn what it means to betray humanity. The first Council dreadnought opened fire. Beams of white energy lanced toward the Terran fleet, but the Erebus's shields flared. Holding firm, Hayes raised his hand. All batteries returned fire. The void erupted. Terran rail cannons roared. Tungsten slugs hammered into the lead dreadnought, tearing through its shields, smashing its hull. The alien vessel split apart. In a single breath, fire pouring from its core. Its crew's screams lost to static. Then the storm began. Terran ships advanced in formation, black phalanxes of steel, their guns unleashed in a steady, merciless rhythm. Missiles streaked across. The dark, drones swarmed. Alien vessels fell one after another, their wrecks tumbling into the planet's atmosphere, burning as they crashed into oceans and cities below. Each impact a scar across the capital world. The Council's defenders fought bravely, their beams lashing out, their fighters swarming. But they were outmatched, outgunned, and outwitted. Terran interceptors cut through their ranks. Drones blinded their targeting systems. One by one, their dreadnoughts exploded, their fire reduced to embers in the void. On the surface, civilians looked to the sky in horror as their own fleet collapsed. Ships they had once believed invincible now falling like meteors. The Council's banners burned in every street. Fear turned to chaos. Whispers of surrender spread like wildfire. Inside the Council chamber, panic erupted. Delegates screamed for evacuation, for negotiation. But the High Speaker could only stand frozen, his many eyes staring upward, watching as the very power he had built crumbled before him. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Impossible." But the impossible had already arrived. The Erebus descended slowly, her vast shadow casting darkness across the capital's greatest city, her guns pointed downward, her presence alone enough to silence the world. On her bridge, Hayes gave the final command. Transmit. Across every channel, in every language, the message came. The scarred admiral's face filled the skies, his voice cold, his words deliberate. You betrayed us, you burned our world, you thought humanity would kneel. But we have returned, and now you will face judgment. Silence followed, heavy, absolute. Then the order came. Fire. The Erebus unleashed her cannons, the ground below split as towers shattered. Firestorms roared through the city. Oceans boiled as orbital strikes rained down. The capital's proud crystal spires melted into rivers of glass. Its palaces crumbled into ash. The Council's home, the heart of their empire, was drowned in fire. Delegates screamed as the chamber shook, walls splitting, flames pouring in. The High Speaker's voice rose one last time, but his words were drowned in the roar of destruction. The chamber collapsed, burying the Council in the ruins of their own making. Above, the Terran fleet watched in silence, their black hulls reflecting the light of burning cities. Not one ship flinched, not one voice called for mercy. They remembered Earth. They remembered the betrayal, and their vengeance was absolute. When the fires dimmed, the capital was gone. Its cities nothing but ash and ruin, its oceans blackened. With smoke, its towers melted into slag. The council was no more. Their empire shattered in a single day. Admiral Hayes stood at the viewport, his reflection dark against the burning planet. His officers watched him, waiting, but his face was unreadable. He spoke at last, his voice heavy, final. Humanity was betrayed once, never again. The fleet turned, engines humming, leaving the ruins behind, their shadows stretching into the stars. The galaxy watched in silence. Fear and awe mingled in equal measure, for the message was clear. Humanity was no longer the hunted, no longer the scattered survivors of a broken world. They had risen from the ashes, stronger than before, and those who betrayed them had paid the price. The council was gone, their jewel world shattered, their fleets annihilated, and in their place, a new power stood, forged in exile, hardened in fire, a power that whispered to every corner of the galaxy the same words that had carried them from ruin to vengeance. We will not kneel, we will return. And now, all who looked upon the Terran fleet knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and the stars themselves trembled before them.